Today we're taking a look at the IE600 by Sennheiser. How does this $700 monster compare to a lot of other IEMs within this price bracket? Is it competitive? Is it as good as a lot of people say? In this video, we'll find out. Hey friends, Timmy here. Welcome back to another video on Giz Audio. And today, the IE600 is going to be reviewed and compared to a lot of IEMs such as Moondrop Variations, the new SA6, and the DA Audio Oracle. Let's start off with the sound signature first. This thing boasts a V-shaped style signature with really good bass leading on to very clean mid-range, good upper mids, and a lot of treble. When it comes to the bass, you're gonna get, again, plenty of power. So for those of you who love bass, if you call yourself a bass head, there's gonna be enough amount of bass here for you. The sub bass is great. The mid bass slams are also great as well. Not too much that's too distracting, and it doesn't bleed into the mid-range in any way. A very well-tuned bass response, and also being that this is a dynamic driver, you can expect the same dynamic driver bass as well, meaning that the thumps and the slam come across very distinct, very satisfying, and overall just a great bass experience across the board. Onto the mid-range, I would say this has very energetic mid-range. You have very flat, clean lower mids onto a very energetic upper mid-range. The vocals really pop out at you. All the instrumentals shine really well. Even though you have the powerful bass behind you, they don't feel like they clash in any way at all. They feel like they work together extremely well. Those elements just pop on their own without ever feeling like they blend or mesh or muddy up in any way, which is really nice. Onto the timbre, I would say, being that it is a dynamic driver, the timbre here is phenomenal. Very natural feeling timbre. There's no peakiness, there's no plasticiness in any way at all, so everything comes across more natural than your other driver setups can do. Onto the treble area, this is gonna be a love it or a hate it for a lot of people. The treble area here is a lot, but it's a lot in a way that it doesn't really portray any sense of sibilances or any kind of fatiguingness. It's just a lot in a sense where it adds that bit of extra energy, that bit of extra sparkle to everything that it touches. So vocals come across extra sparkly, extra forward, extra energetic. Instrumentals, percussions, all those just have that bit of extra bite to it. Now, for some of you, you guys might find that to be a little bit too much, maybe too sparkly to be natural, but for a lot of you guys out there, you guys might listen to this and think, wow, that's a lot of details, or that's a lot of micro nuances in the song that's being revealed. And yes, with the amount of treble that you get in an IEM like this, that's normally what you get. A lot of micro nuances, the details kind of pop and jump at your face a little bit. Some people might find that to be a little bit distracting, again, a little bit unnatural, but for me, it is very satisfying to listen to. It makes for a very energetic yet analytical experience at the same time. That I really like. But back to my few sentences ago, this is a love it or hate it territory. Some of you guys might like it, some will not. Next, we have technical performance that includes details, resolution, soundstage, and imaging. And I would say that this IEM does extremely well in all of those departments. Let me bring up my scale right here. This IEM lands right around, I would say, a little bit above the 7 Hz timeless. As you can see, it is very close to being called top tier resolution. It's almost amongst the best of the best you can get on the market today. And for the price that it's at, being under $1,000, that is phenomenal. Very good. There's very few IEMs that can say it has technical performance that high for a price of under $1,000. Because if you look at a lot of in-game IEMs, you're looking at 1,000 plus minimum in most cases. I would say in 99% of cases. So this being under $1,000, 300 less than $1,000 actually, it's very good. On to soundstage and imaging. I would say soundstage wise, this thing is pretty wide, and that's all thanks to how well the low end and the top end is done. The sub bass hits deep, while the treble with the amount that you get really adds this sense of airiness and openness at the top end, lending into an even wider feeling stage than you usually would get if those two elements aren't done so well. Imaging wise, this thing is also very nicely done. There's good depth of field, meaning that you get a sense of instrument feeling closer or further away from you. That separation is really well made. And also instrument placement is near pinpoint. Not top tier quite yet, but super close. Now it's comparisons time. Let's first compare the IE600 to the Moondrop Variation. Now, the Moondrop Variation is tuned very differently than the IE600. Moondrop Variation comes across much more clean, much more U-shaped, meaning that it's focused on the sub-bass and the top end, while the IE600 is more of a V-shape. What is super close in comparison though is the technical performance. The Variation and the IE600 goes toe to toe. I would say soundstage wise the Variation is wider, but when it comes to little micro nuances and the details, the resolution parts, the IE600 slightly edges out the Moondrop Variations. When it comes to timbre, the naturalness of how something comes across, I would say both are very competent. I would say the IE600 comes across slightly bit more natural because it is one single dynamic driver as opposed to a tribrid like the Moondrop Variations. That one does have a little bit of that EST timbre in it, not too much. The Variation is still extremely well done, natural for the most part, but in comparison to the IE600, the IE600 is just a touch more natural sounding. In comparison to SA6, I would say the SA6 come across more natural, more reference style. The overall tuning wise, the SA6 still sounds a little bit better to me because the treble on the SA6 is not as forward and not as potentially offensive as it is on the IE600. When it comes to technical performance though, the IE600 wins. It has wider stage. The notes come across more cleanly, more well-defined. The details are also more abundant in the IE600 than on the SA6. So while I enjoy the SA6 tuning a little bit more because it's safer, it's more natural, the IE600 is undoubtedly the better IEM if you want that more detailed and analytical experience. And lastly, we have the comparison to the DA Audio Oracle. Now, these two IEMs cannot be more differently tuned. The Oracle is very neutral style tuning, very referencey with a little bit of bass boost, and the IE600 again is a V-shaped style IEM. The Oracle is very natural, probably one of the most natural sounding IEMs, the most correct tuning in IEMs I've ever heard. The one thing it does lose to the IE600 is again the technical performance. The IE600 is simply a beast at that. And again, under $1,000, there are very few IEMs that comes even close to touching what the IE600 can do technical wise. The only other pair of IEMs I can think of are both also from DA Audio, and that is the Clairvoyance and the Monarch Mark 1, the original Monarch. Both of those are very highly technical IEM. The Monarch Mark 1 is more so than the Clairvoyance. I would say if you pitch those two against the IE600 in the technical department, the Clairvoyance would lose by a small margin. The Monarch Mark 1 would go toe to toe with the IE600. Yeah, both of those IEMs, I would say, currently under $1,000 are the best performing technical wise you can get on the market. So in conclusion, should you get the IE600? I would say if you're looking at value for details, I would say the IE600 is definitely worth the money, definitely worth the grab. The biggest question now is that can you handle the tuning style of it? Bass heavy, clean mid-range, those two elements are relatively safe and majority of people are gonna like that, except if you don't like too much bass. The only issue here is gonna be in the treble area. Can you handle how much treble that is presented in here? Can you handle that extra bit of energy? And that's where you are gonna have to make that decision for yourself. I would say again to the treble, even though it's a lot, does not have these fatiguing qualities, the sibilances that a lot of IEMs do have. It is a lot of treble, but it's nicely done treble. So at the end of the day, again, you decide. All right, that is it for the review of the IE600. Is this a full recommendation? 100% a full recommendation. I love this. And one thing I forgot to talk about as well, it is super comfortable. Yeah, I think everyone talks about that, but yes, it is very, very, very comfortable. Super light. I can wear these for hours and I just almost don't ever feel it bugging my ears in any way at all. So yeah, super comfortable IEM, highly recommended, worth the price. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Bye.
君が笑うだけで何でもできる気がする一緒に